75.6 million just placed, and whereby other projects that are for government to carry out to be moved to 2025, Madam Chair, because it's a wish list, like I keep saying. So while we have an approved CAPEX, which we didn't have for many, many years, we finally have an approved CAPEX now. So it's very important on how we carry out projects throughout. Another thing, Madam Chair, that is very important to note is the reason that you may hear a lot of my questions pertaining to the causeway. For those who may not be aware, when the Minister of TEAT was here, we kind of created a link based on the answers. Well, I created a link based on the answers that this causeway bridge was built, which many of us use. However, throughput fee, according to the Prime Minister, was instated so that we can pay the loans for such. Then in such, with this throughput fee, came increase in fuel clause. Sol has to pay throughput fee. I want to know what GB has to pay. Cost of living, products and goods, groceries, grocery stores. All of these are linked because while we speak of yes, we do have a national energy crisis. We do have a crisis of people not being able to pay their bills, not being able to afford their bills. We are receiving petitions here in Parliament pertaining to the fuel clause. And all of these, most of the scenario where you see it's linked. So I wanted to clarify to the members, the public of St. Maarten, why maybe the interest in causeway, because we need to find something that will benefit the people and help with the cost of living. And that is exactly what we are trying to develop when I ask about the question specifically to the causeway. Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Otley. MP Myers, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, there was two questions that I asked and I didn't get an answer from, so I don't know if the Minister of Finance will answer the question. One was there was a loan some years ago that was approved by the banks to the tune of $90 million for GB, and it was not drawn down on. I don't know if you know the answer for that. I did not receive that answer to that question. And then secondly, I believe, when was the last time, can you give me, over the last 4 years, what GB paid in concession fees to government, and including the year, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, the amount that was taken out of GB to balance the budget of government. Can you give me that exact amount? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Myers. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Also, the MP Myers mentioned something about budget and projections, and I actually want to follow up on that. The budget projections were cut, so cost wasn't cut, but the projections were cut because of revenue generation. So there were items that say like veneer, there was items like the tax levy, I believe the 1 cent per liter wasn't there, the inspection, like I mentioned, among other items. So yes, obviously if you have these revenue generation and the current government removes them, my question would be, what revenue generation items since May were presented by this government for the budget amendment? For example, you had the 1 cent per liter. That was a direct way of generating revenue, but it was removed. That went to sports. So I don't see why, for example, an item like that would be removed when it's an easy way to generate funds, especially for tourism. The only thing that had to be done was to have an entity attached to it. That was the final part. The legislation, I believe, was actually drafted by the Ministry of TEAT, and they worked along the Ministry of Education. So again, yes, I agree. If the cuts will come if the government removes any sort of revenue generation, that's logic. but what was it replaced with is more important. And it will also mean that if all these items are removed in 2024, the Minister of Finance mentioned that for the budget 2024 and 2025, no policy changes are coming. That would mean that the current government, is not planning to make any policies regarding revenue generation, which is very weird to me. So I'd like some clarity on that. Is the Ministry of TIAT not working on any policies regarding revenue generation? And none of those policies are reflected in the budget 2024, and the Minister of Finance also mentioned that none will be reflected in 2025. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. MP Irian, MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have two follow-up questions. The first one being, because I know that the question was posed in a general sense, however, I haven't received much clear answers from the individual ministers. How many, so I'll do it per ministry, how many persons do you have within the ministry that are currently working outside of their function, and are they being properly compensated? And the other question is, how far along is the ministry with the STA? I know it has been a discussion for over a decade, but even in our time, there's been a lot of discussion with the former minister as well, former ministers. I would like to know, is there any concrete plan from the ministry as to potential actual start date? Because I know the foundation was launched years back, but the mystery remains, when will we start? What is the goal in terms of the start date for the STA? Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Doran. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, if I were you, Madam Chair, a lot of times we sit back, both sides of the room, and we say, you know, something is not possible, or why is not something possible, or why are we not doing something, or we can't do something because of X, Y, and Z. You know, both sides of the room are guilty in that. A lot of times a step is being skipped. What are we doing to get ready for that position in order to do that down the road? So, for example, the Winair idea was pulled off the table. Reason being at the time, being used at the time, lack of legislation. What is being done with that legislation moving forward, in the sense of, are we getting ourselves prepared in the event of us ever wanting to sell the shares of Winair or any other entity of that magnitude? So what is the state of affairs when it comes to legislation, if the legislation if it's even being made or have plans to be made, and what other plans are where that is concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP La Cruz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, through you, I'd like to echo a statement made before, and that branch to offer it also to the Minister of TIAT as a think team put together with Parliament and all ministers to come up with ideas to bring some extra monies to the coffers, because we're all here on this side asking what are the plans, but I know that most of us here have ideas. So if the minister is open to the idea, I am definitely, Minister Otley, also open to bringing some of those ideas over to the minister. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz, for that offer to the minister. Thank you, members of Parliament. Minister, just briefly, some additions to some of the questions posed. The reason why I was able to so quickly forward the investment and diversification policy / guide of government is because I had it actually at hand to ask the ministry, given that policy plan and the recommended steps, is there an implementation plan of the ministry with respect to the particular items that are being proposed? And if not, can such be made, especially in the context of when we get to the 2025 budget, so that where funds are necessary to execute certain parts of this investment and diversification guide, that then it can be reflected in the budget and we can have the discussion on that. I can be short, and asked the same thing regarding the agriculture policy that is also there on the books, a very comprehensive one. Can we identify the steps to be taken on an annual basis so that we can see them reflected where necessary in the budget? And Minister, referring to the agriculture policy and your efforts in the area of agriculture, I want to know if the ministry is aware of the recent article written by the local expert in this area, and that is Mr. Barefoots, with respect to the effects of the invasive species on St. Maarten on agriculture, the devastating effects of the invasive species on St. Maarten, and right now thriving on St. Maarten, and the effects of these species on agriculture. If not, if the ministry is not aware of it, I can have this sent immediately to the ministry. It's extremely important what is written in that latest report by our local expert. Thank you, Minister, for your response regarding the vendors on the Ring Road and Pondfield Road. I think this is something that you really need to keep your finger on the pulse of the developments there. The Minister, I read recently an article by Turning Point regarding an offer made to them and their response to that offer coming from a group, a company that either has or is expecting permission to have something to do in the area of cannabis. So whether they're getting the permission to grow, to whatever, to market, whatever it is. And I truly could not understand exactly what Turning Point was really saying about their interaction with the group. And if you can provide some explanation there too. Minister, with respect to SME development and in the budget, there is, of course, we also have a policy on SME development. Are there any reports as to the execution of these policies or of this policy? Minister, the Gaming Control Board, the amount in our budget has been reduced with 91,000 guilders, but there's still a remaining 84,000 guilders on the budget. And what exactly, given that this plan is being prepared via the Landspakketten, what is that amount for in our budget? And then, Minister, I am going to ask it very carefully because I don't want to create any expectations that can't be met. So I'm asking, given the movements of the vendors at the Philipsburg market, is there any way that they can be exempted from paying, or are they going to be, let me ask it this way, exempted from paying their monthly/annual fees where this matter is concerned because of their sort of uprooting, replacement, and everything that went along with that? Minister, I had asked, and it was responded by another